What's up, y'all? Happy Halloween! Welcome back to another episode of All Right, Let's Talk About It. My name is Savannah. I am your host. I do film reviews and film industry commentary. And this is $2 Tuesday, the series where we talk about movies we haven't talked about before. Well, it is Halloween. So I can't think of any other movie that would be better to talk about than Halloween. One of my absolute favorite movies. If I had to create like a top 10 list, I think Halloween would be somewhere in the top 7. Definitely. So we're talking about Halloween, right? John Carpenter's Halloween. I adore him very much. I think he is such an incredible artist of a director, an auteur, so to speak. Very creative. And they had to get very creative with this movie, and we're going to talk about it for a little bit. So this is going to be like a pure geek session. So just sit back and relax, and let's be nerds together. Quick disclaimer, if I sound a little stuffed up, it's because I am. I'm getting over a little cold, and the decongestant is decongesting. It's doing what it's supposed to do, and I'm very annoyed with it. And I have plans to go out for Halloween tonight in this cold New Orleans air. And by go out, I mean ride the streetcar to Bourbon Street and just people watch. That's it. That's the extent of it. My partying days are over, but let's talk about this wonderful movie, Halloween, released in 1978, directed by John Carpenter, stars Donald Pleasance, PJ Soles, Nancy Loomis, Nick Castle as the Shape, and then in her debut, Jamie Lee Curtis. The interesting thing about Jamie Lee Curtis is that she was fixing to give up and move on until she got, this movie came knocking on her door, and the rest is history. And she's gone on to have a very nice career in the 80s of, she kind of stuck within this stream of trope, being a scream queen, a bit of a sex symbol. And she finally got her Oscar after however many years. She finally got her Oscar this past year for Everything Everywhere All at Once. Now, I was rooting for Carrie Condon from The Banshees of Inisherin, but Jamie Lee Curtis for me was like a close second. Well, not even that close, but like, close second. But this movie here, it is the little movie that could. This movie it's a cultural phenomenon. It has shaped and reshaped and kind of been laid as the foundation for this subgenre of horrors, slasher films, babysitter films. Set precedent in a sense, help birth a wave of slasher films. Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, and then you have the Scream, which was also Wes Craven. Wes Craven did Nightmare on Elm Street, and he also did Scream, which satirizes this, teen slasher genre. Candyman, the era of the Boogeyman, thinking about movies like golly, I Know What You Did Last Summer, Urban Legend, really helped to shape the way we view the boogeyman and the way we view the things that go bump in the night and just morality and the role that it plays in horror movies, because that was a big deal for this movie. Is it's kind of a morality play in that we have not so much our characters making decisions, but more so the audience having to decide, in a sense, and it's something you have to think about later, what's right and what's wrong, what's okay and what's not. And in this case with Halloween, it's, teenage promiscuity. You know, people kind of crack on Jamie's character, Laurie Strode, in this movie for being a bit of a prude, book smart, and doesn't go out a whole lot, doesn't date, but she's the final girl, right? There's a trope that, continues. The final girl, the girl that kind of wins at the end. We have, Laurie Strode, Julie James, golly, who else? Nancy, what's her name from Friday the 13th? Not Friday the 13th. Nightmare on Elm Street. Sydney, Scream, the girl who kind of wins in the end, in a sense, conquers all or whatever it is. But this movie was a little movie that could. It was a tiny little thing of a movie. No one thought this movie would do what it did. So let's talk about that. This thing always boggles my mind. This is something I've known for a very long time. I've watched the documentary that kind of details this. If you buy the DVD, I'm pretty sure this is one of those extra features. I'm pretty sure you can watch it on YouTube. But if you've never watched kind of the basic behind the scenes for this movie, I highly recommend it. It's just fascinating because, again, this movie is a cultural phenomenon. We've seen however many sequels. It's been rebooted, remade, reimagined. It's, been an inspiration over what, 4 decades at this point, and it was so small. Budget of somewhere between $300,000 and $325,000, which in today's time is about 1.4 million. So incredibly small budget. And it was filmed over 20 days in May 1978 and then was released later that year. Literally the little movie that could. Wardrobe. Now we have big movies with fancy wardrobes, custom costumes. Nah, they basically had to thrift a lot of the wardrobe here, whatever they could afford that was inexpensive. The mask for Michael Myers was a Captain Kirk mask that was kind of refashioned, the eyes cut out and, the hair messed up a bit and kind of made white to make that mask. You look at some of this and you think, because of how influential it is, that it's something big, but it's not. It was small. It's a mustard seed of a movie in a sense. And I always find that so fascinating because we have this entire subgenre of horror slasher films, and it started with a film that took 20 days to film on $300,000. Insanity. Maybe I'm a nerd, maybe I'm a geek, I don't know, but I think it's so cool. But the thing about this movie, as foundational as it is, it has its own foundation. And here's the thing about directors, especially those who are very passionate. They love film and they love film history, and they're always inspired by the directors that came before them. I've talked about this before, but Martin Scorsese, his movie Hugo is an homage to early film history, much of which has been lost because of the war. Well, famously, Halloween is a bit of an homage to some earlier filmmakers, not too early, but earlier. We're talking maybe a decade or two before. So Orson Welles' Touch of Evil, Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, most notably. That's where Sam Loomis gets his name from, Dr. Sam Loomis. He's named after the boyfriend, Sam Loomis. Who else gets a namesake? Queen of Space Opera, Lee Brackett is an author. Sheriff Brackett, that's where his name comes from. I believe it's Touch of Evil, where the long continuous shot in the very beginning is kind of an inspiration for from Touch of Evil. So let's talk about some things in this movie that are so interesting to me. I just want to touch on a couple things because what this movie does is so simple and so easy, and so many movies have tried to recreate it and they fail. And yet, even in that failure, they create something brilliant on its own. That's how we got Jason. That's how we got Freddy. But we have at the very beginning this long continuous shot. It's one shot and it's so brilliant and it's beautiful with a hint of Touch of Evil and also a hint of Psycho. Because remember, in Psycho, we get a bit of the first person narrative of the knife. So much of this movie is first person. We see a lot of what's happening through the eyes of Michael Myers, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So we have that first person narrative before we even see the face of a 6-year-old Michael Myers. We see him coming inside the house, grabbing the mask, grabbing the knife, going upstairs to his sister's room, sister who just had sex with her boyfriend. Boyfriend already left the house, and she's sitting half naked, brushing her hair, and is like, "Oh my God, Michael, why are you in here?" I mean, she just says, "Michael," and then that's when he starts stabbing her, and then he walks downstairs, and his parents are like, what is going on? Because, he's in his little clown Halloween costume with the clown mask holding a knife, and he's just staring blankly into space. And that's one of 2 times we see his face in the whole movie, at the very beginning and then at the very end. So much of this movie is told from his perspective, and I think that's what makes this movie so scary. From the very beginning, we know who this is, we know what he is, we know what he's capable of. We get a very nice portrait, a very well-rounded picture of Michael Myers from the very beginning. So nothing is, sprung on us. Nothing is unpredictable. It's very predictable, yet we're dealing with an evil that's incomprehensible. That's we're not able to comprehend. We're not able to understand. Pure evil. That's what Michael Myers is supposed to represent. And that's kind of where this thing ends. That's the thing about Michael Myers that I always adored, because every, horror legend has a reason. Candyman is racism. Jason Voorhees, we don't see him until the sequel. In the very first movie, sorry, spoiler alert, it's his mother. And, his mom dies at the end. So the rest of the sequels are pretty much revenge for what happened to him as a child, and also avenging his mother's death. And then you have Freddy Krueger, who is getting back at the kids who accused him of doing nasty things to them when they were children, which he did do. Freddy Krueger scares the bejesus out of me, by the way. I've only seen the first movie once, and it took me 2 days to watch it. He terrified me. Absolutely terrifies me. Um, we have Chucky, whose sole purpose is trying to get back in human form. Right before he dies in a shootout in a toy store, he voodoos his spirit into a doll. And so he's trying to get his spirit out of the doll and into a human body, and finds out that the only way to do that is he has to make that transfer with the first person he revealed his true nature to, which happens to be little Andy, a child, a 6-year-old kid. We have Ben Willis from I Know What You Did Last Summer. And his whole reason is avenging what happened to him. He was hit and, they dumped him in the water, didn't realize he was still alive. So he's getting revenge for what was done to him. Scream, Ghostface, we find out it's Stu and Billy, and they're getting I don't know what Stu's deal was. I think Stu is just a goof who was just along for the ride. But Billy Loomis, again the name Loomis, getting revenge for what happened between his parents. His mother, his father slept with Sydney's mom, and that's why his mom left. So they all have a reason, right, as to why they do the things that they do. And I think that makes sense because as normal, regular, everyday human beings who don't have sociopathic or psychopathic tendencies, we want to make sense of why things are the way they are, why people are evil. So having these boogeymen who have reasons, it just makes sense. But that's what makes Michael Myers so special, is that he doesn't have a reason. We don't know why he is the way he is. He just is. Now, sequels have tried to make sense of the way he is. We have Halloween 2, which was kind of done reluctantly in a way. John Carpenter thought, hey, I felt like the story ended just fine with the first one. He felt like there wasn't much more to tell. But, they decided to kind of give a reason that Michael Myers came back for his sister. Laurie Strode is his sister. And then you have Halloween 3, which was supposed to just explore the lore of Michael Myers. I've only seen it once, and it's just weird. Now you have Halloween 4, 5, and 6. I happen to enjoy those sequels. I think I'm the only person on the planet that actually likes Halloween 6. It's just good. It's fun trash. I use that phrase quite a bit. It's fun trash. But Halloween 4, out of all the sequels, is probably my favorite. I really enjoy Halloween 4. But these movies sought to make sense of why Michael Myers is the way he is, make him a part of some sort of satanic cult, and his whole goal is to just end his family line. We had the reimaginings, which showed Michael Myers as a bullied kid who was kind of just bullied into that position. And, that's why he is the way that he is. But then we go back to, Halloween 2018, and then the sequels that followed there, which are all a direct sequel to the very first movie. And we're back to the Michael Myers who just is, who's just evil. And for whatever reason, he's fixated on Laurie. And that's where it gets interesting for me, because remember, he's evil. He just is. I don't think he killed his sister because he wanted to kill his sister. I think there was something in him that just said, I need to kill something. And his sister was there. She was available, ready to go. And she was already sitting down, and he was 6 years old, and it was easy. Who knows? We don't know. All we know is that he was pure evil. There was no curing him. And we get a little bit of this from Dr. Sam Loomis, Donald Pleasance, who tries to explain, he met this 6-year-old child who was just completely emotionless, devoid of humanity, and he spent some time trying to get through to him and then realized there was no getting through to him, so he spent the rest of the time getting locked away. This is interesting, something I've never thought about before, because the beginning starts right after we get that long continuous shot of a 6-year-old Michael killing his sister. We skip ahead to Dr. Sam Loomis and a nurse driving in the car on the way to the hospital because they have to transfer Michael to another facility. And I never thought about why until I actually looked at the dates. So this movie starts in 1963 when he's 6 years old, and then we jump 15 years to 1978. That's 15 years. That means Michael Myers is 21. That makes sense. He was probably at a facility where they could only hold him for so long, and now it's time for him to go somewhere else. I don't know. I thought that was interesting. I never thought about it before. And so we get this idea of this man, this thing, Dr. Sam Loomis refuses to call him anything that would suggest he has humanity. Keeps saying it. The evil is gone. He's just he's not human. He's something else. He's something extra. And I think that's what makes him so scary is you don't know why. At least with Candyman, you know why. With Freddy Krueger, you know why. We don't know why. The man is just killing people for reasons we don't understand why. And how does Laurie Strode come into the picture? Well, he sees Laurie once. Laurie's father is a real estate agent, and I guess they're trying to sell the Myers home. So on her way to school, she drops off a key to put under the mat at the Myers home, because again, they're trying to sell it. Michael just happens to be in the house, steps, to the front door where he can't really see her, and he's looking through a window, and that's when he lays eyes on Laurie Strode for the very first time. Now, what's going through his head, we don't know. All we know is that this man is on a mission. He follows her to school, staring at her through a window. Very infamous shot that's been recreated a couple of times. Halloween, H2O redid it. I think this was also redone in Scream, if I remember correctly. It's been a while since I've watched the original Scream. So very famous shot of her sitting in class, minding her own business, listening to class, and she looks out the window very casually, and there he is. But, she can see him from a distance. She can't really tell much about him. Again, remember this mask that's devoid of human features, kind of just blank, very black and very empty, with Nick Castle as the shape, who was so good looking, by the way. Oh my goodness, that was a fine man. I mean, he's still fine, but lordy, he was good looking. Tall and lanky. And, he pops up every now and then. She's walking home and she sees him, standing by a bush. She's in her bedroom. She looks out the window. She sees him in the neighbor's backyard. And he follows her from her home to the kid where she's babysitting. And she's getting a ride from her friend Annie. So they're kind of sort of across the street a bit from one another. And I'm trying to figure out what's going through his head, because before he goes to Laurie, because clearly he's fixated on Laurie, but before he even gets to Laurie, he kills her friends. He gets rid of Annie, and then gets rid of Lydia. I never get her name right. She's the one that says totally all the time. I kind of like her though, but I can never get her name right. I'm terrible. I know. Linda, Miss PJ Souls. So, kills Linda and Linda's boyfriend. That infamous shot where he raises him up along the wall and stabs him, leaves him hanging, and then his head tilts to the side. That was totally improvised, by the way. An infamous shot, again, that people have tried to recreate and they can't quite get that magic because it wasn't planned. He just did it. Nick Castle, I think, as the shape was just something extra. A lot of people have tried to recreate everything about him, the build, the walk. But if you watch that original movie and you watch the way Michael Myers moves, he moves like a regular man. He gets in the car like a man. He walks across the street everyone I think has tried to portray him not as he is, but the way we perceive him, as something otherworldly, as something inhuman. So he has a very inhuman strut, a very determined strut. But homie's just walking regular, like he's on a mission, okay, stab, murder, kill. That's it. Very simple. And he eliminates all her friends and then comes for her. And I'm like, why? I wonder, was he offended? The fact that he came home. That was his instinct. I wonder, had she never come to the house, would he have gone after her? We only know of one other person that he killed on the way there, which was a man in a truck. He stole his jumpsuit. That's where he gets the black jumpsuit from. Because if you pay attention, when Dr. Sam Lewis is on the phone saying, hey, he's on his way there, he sees the truck with, the hospital gown that was left behind, completely misses the body, but you can see on the car where it says garage. So that's where he gets the black jumpsuit from. And he ends up robbing a hardware store, and that's where he gets the mask. So I wonder, because it wasn't until he laid eyes on Laurie Strode that he started to follow her. The thought of, her being his sister was never a thought for John Carpenter at the time. It was something they came up with for the second movie. And he's never really even liked that plot. Today, he calls it very silly and kind of foolish. Those are the words that he uses to describe it. He doesn't really quite agree with it. So he was very happy when the 2018 sequel came along and just completely dismissed all those other sequels and just was a direct sequel to the first one. Even made mention of the rumor that, oh, she was his sister, and just no, that was just something silly, something stupid people made up. They're not related. So we never really get a reason as to why. I wonder, maybe he was fixated on her. Maybe he found her attractive, and murder being his love language, he thought, I'll give her a present. I'll just murder her friends and set them up in a pretty fashion so that when she finds them, she'll be so happy, and then I'll kill her too because that's how I show that I love people. I mean, why not? I needed some new clothes to wear, and this guy was so willing to give me his clothes. Not really, but I needed them, and I wanted to thank him, so I killed him. I don't know. Like, why? Was he offended by the fact that, he came home? That was his instinct after all those years, was to just go straight home. Would he have killed her had she not put a key under the mat? I wonder these things, and that tells you how much of a life I really need. But it's so fascinating. This movie is so good. Certain things about this movie that builds tension. So you have that long continuous shot, and you really don't know that this is a child until he reaches down and grabs the mask. And you realize that looks like a kid's hand, and then you see his face and you realize that's a little boy, completely devoid of emotion, not crying, just staring blankly into space. And you have a lot of shots that are from his point of view. In a sense, it's not like we're watching through his eyes, but when he's standing outside looking through the window, we're right there with him, which was kind of unusual for now. I wouldn't say before then, but now we're not seeing a whole lot of movies from the killer's point of view. We're not seeing his vantage point. We're always with the victim or the would-be victim or the final girl, seeing things from her perspective. When something jumps around the corner, we're jumping with her. Whereas here in, Halloween, we already know what's behind the corner because we're behind the corner with the psycho killer. I love that's so interesting. We know what's going to happen. We know what this man is capable of. We know what he's going to do. We know these people are in danger, and we can't warn them. We can't yell at them to get out the house. We can't yell at them to put some pants on and get in the car. We know what's going to happen. They have no idea. It's such an interesting point of view to kind of see their plight in slow motion. I don't know. I just love it.
Want to advertise on this podcast? Check the episode description to see how you can be featured on the next episode.
Thank you so much for listening to me geek out about Halloween, John Carpenter's Halloween, released in 1978, and stars the now Academy Award winner, Jamie Lee Curtis. What an interesting full circle moment for her, because she was cast specifically in this movie because of her mother, Janet Leigh, who was in Psycho, played Marion Crane. Deborah Hill thought it would be cool to have her in the movie, and so that's one of the reasons why she was cast. Now remember, Jamie Lee Curtis was ready to give up, was ready to just give it all up. But she stuck it out, she said yes, and the rest is absolute history. I love this movie. It's so much fun. It never gets old. It's a classic. It's such an inspiration. And I don't know, I love good directors who build off of one another, and how they always, take inspiration, and there's no shame in it. There's no, I did that first. It's always, hey, I did this new thing. Let me try that. I want to see how that works here. And I love it. I love how even when they're working separately on separate projects, the art of filmmaking is a collaborative effort. And it's such a young industry. It has its issues, definitely. But it's such a beautiful form of art, and I love it so much. And Halloween, I think, is a testament to how much I love it. So, what's coming up? So this is the last day of October. I saw 8 movies in theaters. 2 of those were re-releases. I saw The Hunger Games, and I saw The Birds in theaters for the first time ever. That was exciting. That was so much fun. So what's coming up in the month of November? I already have several tickets for the month of November. I have my ticket for Priscilla on Thursday. I have a ticket for The Marvels next Thursday. I also have a ticket for a mystery movie next Monday, the 6th. AMC is doing something called Screen Unseen. I think Regal does this Mondays typically, but AMC is starting to do this now. I don't have a Regal near me, so I wouldn't know. But I have no idea what the movie is going to be next Monday, but I am highly looking forward to it. I don't know. It's fun. It's cool. It's $5. So I already have my movie for Priscilla, The Marvels. I just got my ticket for the Hunger Games movie, the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I got my ticket for Wish, which I'm actually going to be seeing that weekend. So the movie actually comes out the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. AMC has an early access screening, and I'm going to that on the 18th at like 4 p.m. and I can't wait. I'm so excited. And then I'm also going to get my ticket for Napoleon whenever that comes in. And then what else? Goodness. There are a lot of different things coming out. The Killer is supposed to be I think it's Killer or The Killer, David Finch, Michael Fassbender movie that's supposed to be coming out relatively soon. Maestro is supposed to drop in theaters this month. I'm hoping that limited release comes somewhere near here, but I doubt it. It is, Oscar bait movie. It is going to be on Netflix, so I imagine they're just going to screen the movie in LA or New York, but I am keeping my fingers crossed. I would love to see it before it drops on Netflix. I want to see it in theaters. I would much rather see a movie in theaters than streaming. That's just me. I'm way too comfortable in my bedroom. Way too comfortable. So yeah, much prefer to watch a movie in theaters as opposed to streaming. But I imagine that since this is a Netflix release, they're just going to screen it where it needs to be screened in order for it to be eligible for awards, and then drop it on Netflix in December, which sucks. But so far, that is the plan for November. I still got to get y'all reviews for The Holdovers and Anatomy of a Fall, two movies that are up for Oscar consideration. They're Oscar contenders, I should say. Everything is up for Oscar consideration, but I think these two are going to be Oscar contenders, but I still need to get y'all those reviews. Bear with me. I am still a little sick, and I'm just trying to get through the day. But that's what's coming up. And let me know what movies you're going to be seeing in the month of November. Hopefully, the strike will be over within the next couple of days. I'm getting aggravated and annoyed. And I've talked a little bit about the frustration that I have with the entire strike in an episode from just a few months ago. So you can go listen to that if you want. But hopefully the strike will be over. And when it's over, I will come to TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram, and I will tell you all about it. And I can't wait. Oh my goodness. So I hope you have a happy and safe Halloween. Have an amazing day. Have an amazing night. Have a great week. And I will see you next time.